goal for all. The Green Sanctuary Committee members and congregation member who are going to speak today will tell you what Green Sanctuary means to them and what we will be doing here at the UU Church.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
In today's program, several of us are going to be speaking about our viewpoints on Green Sanctuary and why we believe it's a good thing for this congregation. I will begin with a talk about the intersection of environmentalism and spirituality. Then you'll hear some personal viewpoints. Let's see, from Terry Mahar, Joy Campbell, and Clara Robuski. Bob Colligan will close the program by explaining how planting native plants aligns with our interconnectivity to all living things and how our vision for the Green Sanctuary will become a model for the community. Despite what some politicians might be saying, it is pretty apparent that we have a climate crisis. The concept of a green sanctuary is not new to most UUs. In fact, UUEA has a long history of providing roadmaps for deepening climate justice for member congregations. In 2021, as part of the Spring for Change program, they identified climate change as the greatest physical, moral, and spiritual challenge of our time. Last year, they initiated the Green Sanctuary 2030 program. And this included a process for distinguishing UU congregations who met the current criteria for accreditation. To receive this distinction, congregations must complete projects within 3 intersectional domains as shown here. Mitigation refers to the projects that reduce the causes of climate change. Adaptation and resilience helps congregations create a foundation for long-term climate work. And lastly, the justice component asks congregations to collaborate with frontline communities in fighting climate change. As of last year, I believe 30% of UU congregations had received Green Sanctuary accreditation, most of which were under the previous qualifications for that accreditation. But 30 more had begun the accreditation process. But as noble and appropriate as this program is, accreditation is not the goal as we explore the potential for our Green Sanctuary. I think we're exploring this because it is the right thing to do at the right time, and at least from my perspective, at the right place. That said, the elements that are taking form in our Green Sanctuary will satisfy all of the UUA accreditation requirements and then some. That is because we are looking at creating more than just a sustainable environment here. This project also aims toward developing ongoing programs that better utilize the space to help change the ways people view and interact with the environment. Now, after today's service, Bob and I will be presenting a thorough description of what our committee is envisioning, for the Green Sanctuary in the years ahead, and we urge you to stay and participate in that discussion. There's no question that our environmental challenges have created a sense of powerlessness and disconnection from the natural world. But despite the weight of these problems, an interesting and intriguing synergy is emerging, and that is the intersection of spirituality and environmental consciousness. We have a long history of this convergence. Some have speculated that there were aspects of environmentalism that predate the birth of modern spirituality in Christianity and even earlier in Druid and shamanic cults. The natural world permeated all aspects of life: religion, daily rituals, mythology, food, medicine, art, and much more. Their way of life went hand in hand with the land and the environment. The importance of nature in indigenous cultures is a widely noted fact among history, or throughout history, that continues to the present day. As expressed in art, this brand of spirituality suggests that all objects and elements of the earth, both living and non-living, have an individual spirit that is part of the greater soul of the universe. This principle adheres to a religion called animism, which endows a spirit to the animals, trees, mountains, and the wind, with the belief in an overarching spirituality. Now, most scholars tend to agree that modern environmentalism has historical roots in Romanticism and the revival of nature worship in the works of such individuals as Samuel Taylor Coleridge and William Wordsworth, who believed in the divine power of nature. The work of these poets suggested that anyone could have a mystical experience in nature, even if they did not believe in a Trinitarian God. Now, later in the 19th century, the American transcendentalists like Thoreau and Emerson helped to develop post-Christian spirituality in which connection to nature played a key role. In his essay, Nature, Ralph Waldo Emerson provided a classic metaphor in describing the shift of focus from egocentric to ecocentric. He intends that the individual becomes one with nature, and the manner of the transparent eyeball, as indicated here, is an approach to receiving it. Thoreau left us with this quote, which is one of the great slogans of the environmental movement: "In wildness is the salvation of the world." Reverence for the interconnected whole was further promoted by the German naturalists of the 19th century that included Goethe, Schelling, and Humboldt. Now, as a side note, I had not previously read much about Humboldt, but found out that he was an incredible mind and way ahead of his time. His books and essays included topics of astronomy, botany, geology, mineralogy, and zoology. Some of the brightest minds and prominent scientific thinkers of his era embraced Humboldt's expansive thinking. His early publications included 34 volumes under his underlying premise of the unity of nature. He was an ardent abolitionist, and Frederick Law Olmsted recommended that one of the most memorable parkways in Buffalo's park system be named after him. And if anyone is interested, I'd be happy to share the Smithsonian article that I downloaded about Humboldt and his influence on the history of this country. The assertion of our independence with nature continued through the end of the 19th and 20th century with the first generation of American conservationists. John Muir, known as the patron saint of the American wilderness, was greatly influenced by the transcendentalists. Muir, the ultimate preservationist, experienced the divine in nature, and this is recognized as a subtext in his writing. He often used the word home as a metaphor for nature. Gifford Pinchot was a friend and advisor to Teddy Roosevelt, and his work in forestry brought the principle and policy of conservation into the world. Most of our national forests today exist because of his efforts. In the 20th century, Aldo Leopold was a scientist, scholar, teacher, and philosopher. His book, Sand County Almanac, was read worldwide, and it guided many to discover what it means to live in harmony with the land and with one another. And as Judy showed us last week, Rachel Carson's book, Silent Spring, was a rallying cry to the fledgling environmental movement in the 1960s. Now in the 21st century, we have a continuation of the belief that humans are a part of nature and not separate from it. In Japan, Shinrin-yoku is a practice that is studied sitting in the forest for its therapeutic effects. Similarly, biophilia is a concept that suggests that our physical and mental well-being depends upon our spending time in a natural environment. And some of you may recall from last summer, Reverend Christina Church did a sermon where she described how religious naturalism can be considered intellectually as a philosophy, but also provide a personal religious orientation. Each of these traditions and philosophies share the characteristic of a belief in the interconnectedness of all life forms. From ancient indigenous peoples to philosophers to environmentalists, the common thread is that every living being, human or not, is part of a greater whole. This interconnected worldview is inherently aligned with environmental consciousness, and it recognizes that our well-being is intricately linked to the well-being of the earth. Spirituality often revolves around a quest for meaning, purpose, and a sense of oneness with this planet and the larger universe. Spirituality infuses environmental activism with a sense of compassion and empathy. Instead of approaching environmental issues with anger or despair, many spiritual individuals view them as opportunities for growth and transformation. When individuals see the earth as sacred and divine, they're more likely to treat it with reverence and respect. And one of the most compelling aspects of the intersection between spirituality and environmental consciousness is the motivation it provides for sustainable living. I believe that the Green Sanctuary embodies this convergence. It invites us to explore how our spiritual beliefs and practices can inspire a greater connection with the environment. What is more, it can help us to promote, among others, a similar sense of responsibility and stewardship towards our planet. Terry Mahar, who's not here today, is shown here helping to plant a maple tree last November. She asked me to share a few of her thoughts. I am a retired middle school teacher. I look first to our third principle of accepting each other. For this project, we accept everyone's ideas as well as any physical assistance they can contribute. And we also are all learning together, and we develop our Green Sanctuary, and we can extend the learning to the students we can involve from the nearby school. As a science teacher, I found that not only my students, but also their parents became very excited about hands-on learning. And I confess, although I really enjoyed sharing what I knew and learning something new, we all need to be lifelong learners. Our seventh principle demonstrates our care for the planet we share with all living things, our interdependence with not only other humans, but also with the animals, insects, and vegetation. In creating our Green Sanctuary, we are promoting space for interacting with and caring for the living things of our planet. The opportunities for congregants and our neighbors to interact within the garden while strolling, sitting, meditating, tending, etc. are endless. Think of the conversations that could take place about the tiniest living thing, as well as the trees. Our fast-paced lives, busy days, and so many distractions just do not allow many of us to stop and smell the roses anymore.